Hi, Andy.
Hi.
I keep thinking these adaptations of your books have got to be a dream. What was the part of bringing Project Hail Mary to the screen that made you happiest?
Well, just I mean, watching it come together and just seeing that the directors and Ryan and everyone involved really understood the assignment. Like, it's a story about friendship, it's a story like, it's a bromance, and they didn't change things to make it easier on themselves. They didn't make Rocky comfortable in a human atmosphere, they didn't make him have a face, they didn't do anything, they just stuck with the source material and were able to make something like the end result is you get something really unique. You haven't really seen that before. You've seen the idea of people befriending aliens before. Hello, ET, but ET had a face.
I am Rocky.
He's kind of growing on me. At least he's not growing in me, which was a concern for a little while. He's a genius engineer. His planet's dying too. Their friendship is the heart of the movie.
So, yeah, and then just Ryan knocked it out of the park. Have you seen it?
I have
Yeah,
twice.
yeah. So it all came together so well.
Yeah, it did. I absolutely agree. And one of the things I was thinking about while reading it, also my favorite audiobook of all time as another
Oh, yeah.
side, because here we are. We've
Right.
been singing from Greece. We might as well keep the asides going.
Keep these out. Go on.
But the book makes you feel smart because you have this way of leading us to the answers before Grace or Rocky or any of the others figure that out. The movie captures that. And I wonder, did you and Drew Goddard kind of discuss how you were going to bring that to the screen?
No, not directly. Drew likes to go off into his cave and then work for a while and then come out with a script and then we all give notes and then he goes like, "Okay, back to my cave." So but I mean, he was on the phone with me frequently asking usually about scientific accuracy related questions. Once in a while, he would have something plot related. He'd be like, "I need this to happen, but I changed this thing, so now how do I make this happen even though we're not showing this in the story?" And we'd kind of noodle on it a bit. Um, but mostly I was there in my role as a technical advisor.
One of the things we learned on The Martian was that we don't have to dumb down the science. And that we were all terrified on The Martian. We thought we were going to have to, I shouldn't say dumb down, we thought we would have to simplify the science for a general audience to understand, but we didn't. And we thought, let's just see. Let's just see what happens when we test this movie. And what we found was the opposite, is the audience loved it. They loved that the science was complicated and challenging. And even if they did not understand it, they liked the idea that it was something they could aspire towards. And we went into Hail Mary with that knowledge. We went into Hail Mary knowing we don't have to simplify this. We can do what's right for the story and we can embrace the very thing that makes this special, which is the hard science of it. And I think that helped. We had the wind at our back. And so really it was less about simplifying the science and more just making sure that we put the best story on the screen.
Um, as for like explaining science, it's kind of neat. I mean, um, I always say that people think I'm doing something innovative by explaining complex scientific things enough to make you feel like you understand it. But people have been doing that for a long time. Just watch the show House, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a doctor. I don't understand any of that crap, but I always feel like, oh yeah, no, I understand. I understand a cytokine storm T cell overreaction, immunoresponse to having like leprosy and cancer at the same time. That makes perfect sense now that you think about it, right? But of course, I don't understand any of this stuff.
Yeah.
The correct amount of exposition was given to me so that I could understand it, and so that's the thing. When I'm expositioning the science to the reader or now to the viewer, we need to make them understand just enough so that they can follow the plot without it feeling like they're getting a lecture in college, right? And the thing I always need to remember is there's a big gap between understanding it enough to follow a plot and then being able to apply it later against other problems. I don't need to teach them how to do these things. I just need them to understand the concepts. And that's a lot easier.
Yeah, I'm not buying it. You're great. I'm
Well,
sorry.
thank you.
You did an amazing job. There was times where I was going, "It's like an immune system." Or
Yeah.
I was going, "It's an ecosystem." So, no, you're great.
An ecosystem. That's right.
I appreciate the humility, though. So, I wanted to say that, there is this relationship between Grace and Stratt that is, like, so important, but it's not a will they, won't they relationship. It
No.
is the what might have been if the world wasn't ending kind of thing, you know? And they translate that in a different kind of way on the screen. We get the karaoke moment, but I wondered, what was the key to keeping that bond so poetic from adaptation to directing to performance? What were the keys?
Well, the main thing is that Strat is not a soft, fluffy person, right? She, she's 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 not someone you go to when you had a bad breakup and you need some support, right? She is not a she, you know, but she is incredibly effective at getting things done and getting at tasks. She's a born leader. She's got all these tasks within in the book. The relationship between Strat and Grace was, I mean, I always portrayed it as very much like Strat is busy juggling 500 items and Grace is like one of them, you
Mhm.
know, and he's like, he's barely like worthy of her notice. She's got so much else going on. And she gives him the attention he needs to get him rolling on the task and then moves on. It's like you know, the CEO of of a a corporation with, like, 200,000 employees talking to the janitor. Okay, make sure you get all the bathrooms on this floor clean. Now I gotta go. Okay, and so that was kind of their relationship where she was very much way up boss and he was like one of many people.
I wanted to play Eva Stratt because I'm not so familiar with playing people in power. That was a completely new form of character for me, that there is somebody who's just doing her job in a very good way, who has the respect of everybody and who is leading the way in a lot of things, who has a lot of patience and courage and humor and heart. And I wanted to try to create this sort of energy. I thought it would be a lot of fun. And of course, I wanted to play with Ryan.
And as his importance increased, um, then she would like have more meetings with him and talk to him more. But there was never, and I want to be clear on this, there was never any hint of a like a romance or even really a friendship between those two,
No,
like in the book.
because I
It-
felt like there was that moment where I think some of the scientists say to him, "Well, you're her favorite," or there was
right, yeah. Right. They said, yeah, that was not in the movie, but it was in the book where everybody thought they were sleeping together.
yes.
Like, everybody just kind of assumed they were sleeping together, and he's like, "What? No." And they're like, "Well, I don't then why did she keep you around so much and stuff?" And we later learned it's because within the context of the book, which did things differently than the movie, he has a rare genetic sequence that enables him to be a potential candidate for the mission.
Yeah.
So that's why she was keeping him close and keeping him handy as like a tertiary backup, which turned out to be important. But so even then, the fact you later learn that she wasn't keeping him around out of like some sort of emotional attachment. It was like even that was purely functional.
Yeah, gosh, I didn't think about it.
But she is not, and she is not a heartless robot. That's why I put the scene in the end where she shows a little bit of vulnerability and she just goes and talks to him for a while. And she's like, I'm not a scientist. I'm an administrator. And my training, I'm a history major. I studied ancient cultures. And I know that for most of humanity, most people spent most of their time gathering food. And anything that interrupts that is going to plunge us into the Stone Age. And so she is uniquely qualified to understand the stakes. She's one of the few people who truly understands the the absolutely catastrophic nature of global crop failure that's coming their way. And she's trying to explain this is why there are no moral quandaries or qualms about this. If it's a trolley problem where there's one person on one track and 8 billion on the other, you don't spend a lot of time thinking about it.
Yeah, I really love her clarity that and I love what she says to him, and it is both in the book and the movie where she says, "You're not hesitating because of your students. If it was about your students."
He's like, "Oh, please."
Right, yeah, I love that. So I'm curious about the creation of Rocky and all the elements that went into building that character because he is so singular and you don't soften him at
Mm.
all. And the movie doesn't soften him at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, so I wanted an alien that was as alien as possible. I mean, I've never so to be clear, stories like Star Trek and Star Wars. I mean, Star Wars is a fantasy story, right? But with a science fiction glaze. And then Star Trek is basically like the age of exploration, like the 1700s, 1600s of like ships going out into the sea and encountering islands and, civilizations they may assume you. I mean, Star Trek is basically Marco Polo on steroids, right?
Right.
And that's the feeling they were trying to engage in. But in both cases, Star Wars, Star Trek, they're metaphors for other things. They're metaphors for like a magic world or a swashbuckling world, frankly. And I love them, by the way. I'm a huge fan. Things don't have to be accurate sci-fi for me to enjoy it. Probably my favorite sci-fi property out there is Doctor Who, which is just about the softest sci-fi that exists, right?
It's
It's just it's very squishy. There's like very little real science in there, but that's okay. Don't care. I love it. Um, but for me, my particular shtick is that I do really realistic, accurate science fiction. I was thinking there's no way that aliens would be just like a humanoid looking person with like some forehead bumps who's comfortable in our atmosphere and gravity and everything else. It just and stuff like that. And so I wanted the alien to be like, I mean, shoot, even look just within our own biosphere. So things with a common genetic root, not aliens, but just our own biosphere. If you swap the locations of a shark and a camel, they're both going to die. They have they have environment.
no ability to function in
Yeah.
each other's atmospheres.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they have incompatible living environments, and they're from the same planet.
Right.
So it's like, and so that's why I was like, okay, I want this alien to be alien. I want him to die if you put him in Earth's environment. I want a human to die if you put him in his environment, and I don't want him to look like a person at all.
I'm Grace. I'm gonna call you Rocky. We're here for the same reason. His son is dying too. If we're gonna save our planets, we have to learn how to communicate. Check this out. We have about 250 words. Let's find you a voice.
Why is a school teacher in space?
Nope.
Why is a school teacher in space?
Try this.
I am Rocky. I like.
Boy, I have a new roommate now.
Hi, Grace.
Together, we're pretty smart. But no one's ever done this before.
It is time go.
I think you're being go time, pal.
So, I spent a lot of time working on like what the conditions of his homeworld would have to be like, where it is, in order to have liquid water, and then I worked outward from there. And so we end up with a crab-like rock thing with no need for eyes because there was no benefit to evolving them, and so on.
Yeah. I love Rocky, I gotta tell you.
Everybody loves Rocky. I wanted him to be likable, of course. He's this, plucky, kind of happy sidekick and stuff like that. And I was just not prepared for the amount of love that people have for Rocky.
I think because he's so real, because he doesn't have to be human to be accessible or relatable. There's just something very winning about that. Plus, Grace is stupid when Grace is hungry.
Yeah, yeah. Angry, stupid. How long since last sleep question? The one that people have me write the most when I'm doing a book signing, is like, good, proud. I am scary space monster. You are leaky space blob.
I like that one too. Yeah, there's too many good lines with Rocky. So I just have two more questions because, I know you don't have a lot of time, but the penultimate question is there a Weirverse or are your stories all in their own world? Because I know you have Artemis as well.
The WCU,
Yes.
the Weir Cinematic Universe.
I would
Well,
love that.
well, the short answer is no, because Project Hail Mary and The Martian, for instance, cannot possibly take place in the same universe. Because Project Hail Mary takes place now, and The Martian takes place in the future. And so if they had already gone through the astrophage crisis and stuff like that already, as of when The Martian would happen, yeah, I think this super amazing rocket fuel that completely changes all of humanity might have come up. Like,
That's true. Yeah, it would have helped.
and Artemis also takes place even further in the future. Artemis and The Martian are not incompatible. They could be in the same universe, but Project Hail Mary has to be in its own thing.
Yeah. So are there any moments in the film that are the ones you couldn't wait to see realized?
Well, the two main ones are the first contact scene where, Rocky and Ryland are first kind of trying to figure out how to talk to each other and, communicate. That's, a core element. That's when Harry met Sally, right? That's like, that's pretty important. And then the other one is the so-called fishing sequence, which is when they have to collect a biological sample from the planet Adrian's atmosphere, and that's very exciting and action-packed and visually stunning and stuff. And so I was looking forward to that.
It is amazing when we see the ultraviolet light go on and we see the Petrova lines, and it's like, "Oh my god."
Hmm.
Yeah, that's really good. Okay, I lied. There's one more question.
Okay.
If you could live in any fictional universe ever created, which
Hmm.
one would it be and why?
Well, I'm going to answer this in the most unbelievably selfish way possible. I'm presuming I get to bring my family with me and stuff, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Then I would want to live in Ian M. Banks's culture. I mean, this is almost like a cheesy cheating answer. The culture is a post-scarcity society where, like, basically benevolent AIs and robots and stuff like that just take care of all your needs. You do whatever you want, have fun. Like, it is genuine post-scarcity fiction, and it's the only time I've ever seen that pulled off well in a book. Because the problem with writing a story that takes place in a post-scarcity world is there's no conflict. There's nothing to argue about. So what's the story about?
Yeah.
But Banks does it, you know.
Okay, I have to read it. I haven't read Banks yet, so
Okay, there are many books in that series. I'll just tell you really quick before you go. There are many books in the Culture series. They all take place in that same setting. The first one is called Consider Phoebius. So if you wanted to start chronologically first, that's the one you go to. My favorite and a great introduction into that system is called Player of Games. So that's the one that I recommend as an entry point.
okay, that's perfect. Thank you so much. I could probably ask you like 7 more questions, but I don't wanna be greedy.
You don't want Rizzo to come in after
It's
you.
like, "Okay, Shrink, you're expelled."
Rizzo's like, you think there are worse things I can do? There are. There are worse things I could do.
There are worse things. Thank
Worse.
you so much.
Nice talking to you. Thank you.
You too.